All right, we're going to dive into one of the most difficult stories in the entire Bible. I mean, it's a story filled with tragedy, violence, and this profound, deafening silence from God. And it forces us to ask a question that, honestly, a lot of people are afraid to even whisper.
And this is it. This is the question that can really shake your faith to its core. You have an innocent girl who is brutally assaulted, her family gets torn apart by revenge, and through all of it, crickets. Nothing. No voice from the heavens, no lightning bolt, no divine intervention. I mean, if you've ever felt like your own prayers were just hitting a brick wall while your world was falling apart, you know exactly how heavy and uncomfortable that silence can feel.
But what if this silence isn't about God being absent or indifferent? What if, like this says, it's really about a blocked connection? See, the key to understanding God's silence during this horrific tragedy isn't found in the event itself. It's found in what the family was holding on to, something that gets exposed in the very next chapter.
To get this, we have to wrap our heads around a crucial principle, the idea of an open door. The spiritual world isn't just random chaos. It actually operates on laws of access. And the choices we make, they have very, very real consequences.
And that's exactly why the clue to this whole mess isn't in chapter 34 with the tragedy, it's in the family's actions right after. To really understand God's silence, we have to look at the spiritual house cleaning they do in chapter 35. It's the key that unlocks this entire mystery.
So this brings us to this core idea: spiritual, legal access. What was going on is that Jacob's household was spiritually contaminated. They were literally holding on to idols, little trinkets, and gods from their past. And according to this principle, those objects, they weren't just statues on a shelf. Oh no. They were open invitations. They gave the enemy a legal right, a foothold, to operate and bring chaos into their lives, and that effectively tied God's hands.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly. God's power, it's limitless. It's always available, like the sun is always shining. The variable here is our permission. As the source material puts it, blaming God in this situation is like leaving your front door wide open for a thief and then getting mad at the police for not guarding a house you refused to secure. The family had left a door wide open.
So, how did they fix it? How did they turn this whole thing around? Well, that brings us to the turning point in the story: burying the foreign gods.
This command from Jacob, this is where everything changed. It's like he finally connects the dots. He realizes the spiritual junk they're carrying around is directly linked to the physical chaos they're living in. And he tells them to do two things. First, get rid of the idols, and then purify yourselves. You remove the source of the problem, and then you cleanse away its influence.
And listen, this wasn't some vague suggestion. It was a really clear four-step process. First, you got to identify what doesn't belong. Second, you have to actively surrender it. Give it up. Third, you purify yourselves from its residue. And finally, number 4, you reestablish your connection to God by building a new altar. This was a deliberate, thorough spiritual house cleaning.
Now, the result of all this spiritual cleanup? Wow, it was not subtle. It was immediate, it was powerful, and it was absolutely undeniable. As we're about to see, the purification led directly to their protection.
The action itself was so simple but so symbolic. He took all those foreign gods, all those open doors to chaos, and he buried them, put them in the ground. He was severing their connection to his family, once and for all. It was a physical act with this incredibly profound spiritual meaning.
And just look at the immediate result. The very moment the source of contamination was removed, the entire spiritual atmosphere just flipped. This family, who, let's be honest, should have been a prime target for revenge from all the surrounding towns, is now supernaturally protected. A terror of God falls on their enemies. Why? Because the legal door for the enemy was slammed shut, and the door for God's protection was thrown wide open.
So here it is. This is the bottom line, the key takeaway from their entire story. The divine protection they so desperately needed was just waiting on the other side of their spiritual purification. They had to close the door to chaos before they could be truly secure.
Now, I know this is an ancient story, but the principle behind it is absolutely timeless. So how does this apply to us right now? Let's talk about closing these doors in the 21st century.
Yeah, for most of us, the foreign gods we might be carrying around aren't literal idols we picked up from some other land. No, they're far more subtle, way more internal, and often a lot more deceptive.
Just think about what these modern idols can look like.
It could be pride, right? That part of us that just refuses to admit fault. It could be a secret habit you won't surrender. It could be the crippling fear that you let make all your decisions. Or maybe a moral compromise, a little dabbling in occult practices. Or frankly, it can be anything you put on the throne of your life instead of your creator. Every single one of these can be an open door to chaos.
So this is where we end. This isn't just some theological study. It's a practical and maybe for some of us, an urgent question. Based on this principle of spiritual access, what is the one thing in your life that might be holding a door open that needs to be shut? What modern idol needs to be buried so that divine protection can have full and unhindered access to your life?